My dear sisters and brothers, all of us, in some way or the other, at some time or the other, begin to wonder about our origins. And we have been told that God formed man and He breathed into him the breath of life. He made man in His own likeness and image. And He wanted man to conform to His plan for man, for the whole of creation. But there was a mishap. In freedom, that was the gift that man had received, he was not able to respond to God, but began to fall back on his own self and tried to be God by himself. This is the sin. And it has been carrying on even now. Even though we who are baptized and have received that redemption from original sin still continue to have an affinity towards becoming God-like by ourselves. And we see this manifested in many ways if we are sensitive to our thought patterns. But very often we are not, because our thinking controls us. Because we allow it to control us. We are not in control of our thought. And remember that the thoughts control our feelings. Because the thoughts have different ways of conceiving a reality, conceiving experiences and interpreting them. And often it is only self-centered, not God-centered. And that is what sin is. We have begun to do our own plans and our own ways, and we want God to conform to our ways. And this sin is rampant. And that's why we see that we are not behaving as brothers and sisters to one another. Even in a family, we are at enmity with each other. Look at how we behave with one another. Why should that be? When God has shared with us His own nature and He has revealed this to us in His Son Jesus, who conformed to His plan. And all who, like Him, are able, like Mary, to say, I am the servant of the Lord, be it done to me according to your word. Your plans, let them be fulfilled in my thoughts, words, and deeds. And what is that plan? Often it is to love the other as God has loved us, and Jesus said that to us. Love as I have loved you. That always entails sacrifice. Love always entails sacrifice. Look at the love which we normally have. A lot of sacrifice is involved, but it is a self-centered sacrifice. It is not the other-centered sacrifice. It seems like that, but after some time it wears off. And we are very angry that the other is not responding the way I want. It should be the other way. I should be sensitive to the other, to the point of laying down our life for one's friend. Do we do that? You can examine yourself and find out. And that is why Jesus makes sense to us, because He has revealed this to us and He has formed us into a new being in Himself. And the readings are giving us an indication of this. From Isaiah, when they had gone away from God, what happened? They found themselves in bondage to others who began to control them, the Assyrians, Babylonians, and they were enslaved. Then they began to think, how God had really been good to them. And therefore, they wanted to be back in that kingdom where God had established them in Jerusalem. And that's why it's saying people will come to Zion and back again in Jerusalem, they will experience God's goodness. Yes. That is what they wanted to experience, but they were not able to. So God sent His Son to us. And see how beautifully this construction is in the gospel reading. Look at the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things have come into being through Him, the Word, and nothing can exist without Him. So imagine, right at the start, God made everything through His Son Jesus, the Word made flesh. But we forgot that. Then He reclaimed us in the Son. So what did He do? He gave us grace upon grace. That means the energy to be able to respond to Him. Mary was full of grace, and she said, "Be done to me according to your will, your word." That is what should be our response, but that is where we are desiring more and more the grace of God. But we must be open to it, and we must do something so that we can live in this grace and always respond the way God in us now, in Jesus, wants to do it. He has formed a new humanity in Himself, and in baptism we have become one with Him, so that just as we care for our body, we in Jesus care for one another. That is how we are to live our life. But it has to start with oneself and one small unit, the family. And from there we can keep going out to reach out to the others and have that same kind of an experience which is possible only in God. And that is why Jesus is born for us. Born, yes, there He was born in Bethlehem, but today He is born in our hearts. And this day Mass, we have had 3 Masses, one at midnight, one at dawn, somewhere at 5 o'clock or so, and this Mass now, which is the day Mass. So, in this day Mass, we are looking at Jesus born in us, so that we can never live just by ourselves alone. How many of us are saying this thing to ourselves and to others? I'm lonely. You can never say that. You're saying lonely because you're living by yourself, egoistic, self-centered. We cannot do that. There is a new grace that has been given to us, and we must open the eyes of our faith and see this new creation that we are and will live. My dear sisters and brothers, what shall we do? What are we going to do from today onwards? First, to know that God has a plan for each one of us in Him, in Jesus. Now, those who are baptized, those who are not, everyone is included in that plan. And we know from John's Gospel that he has other sheep that have to come to the flock, and they will come through us. How? By us living in Jesus. It doesn't matter whether we proclaim Him by our word, but by our life we must. And by our loving each other, which is God in us. That is how we will be able to bear witness to the light that Jesus is within us. So, the first thing is to realize that God has a plan. And how are we to conform to that plan? Do what we have to do in Him. How do we do that? Be aware of His presence within you. And how shall we do that? Breath is the way in which we all are living. You take away breath, we are dead. And breath is life. And Jesus has told us, I am life, I am truth, I am way. No one can go to the Father except through me. Through Him. So breath is the way He comes into us, and we can be in Him at every breath. You see, if you are present at your breath, you will start getting integrated. Your body, your mind, and your spirit will come together. And that is what we have to practice. And if you look at the life of Jesus, how He lived it, that's the way we must live. Because we are in Jesus. He spent his night, later part of the day, with his Father. And we are to spend with Jesus so that Jesus in us can spend that time with the Father through us. He's the way. He will do it, and He will show us what's going on in our thoughts, so that these thoughts will bring us to the light of the truth, and the truth will set us free. We have heard this, but we were going to live it. So 5 minutes before you go to bed, just be present to your breath, being filled with Jesus, being emptied in Jesus as you breathe out. And if you can do it in His name, Jesus, 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 what are you doing? You're becoming present to Him, and you're surrendering your thoughts, your feelings, whatever is there within you, whether you know it or whether you don't. Because there are a lot of things which are buried inside, and they will slowly begin to surface as you remain surrendered like this to Him. And when you have done this, what's going to happen to us in 5 minutes? Look at what happens to a dish in 5 minutes. A dish, you start cleaning it. You pour water, it fills from down up, all the content comes into the water, you throw it out. It's not clean. You fill it again, and then you twirl it with your fingers, and then you throw it out. Then you take a scrubber, detergent, clean it once, twice, thrice, 4, 5 times. Then it takes a clean shape. So it is with us. If you just do this in Jesus as you breathe out, the next breath you're filled with His goodness. And in 5 minutes' time, you will experience silence. What is silence? The absence of ego, the absence of self. You will be drowned, you'll be surrendered to Jesus, and Jesus and you will merge, and you'll become one with Him. Now what will He do through the night? He will reformat you, because our thinking formats us and gives us a different kind of a shape. We are not what we are supposed to be in God. So through the night, 5-6 hours of sleep, He formats us, reformats us. In the morning, you remain united to Him 5 minutes. And I can guarantee you, the whole night becomes prayer. Like just how we charge the mobile, your life will be charged with Jesus. And so with Jesus, you will begin to walk, you'll begin to see, you'll begin to hear, you'll begin to speak, you'll begin to work. How? At every breath, you will want to be with Him, because that brings you peace, that brings you energy, that brings creativity, that helps you to be present to others. What is love? Love is presence. And what kind of presence? A presence in Jesus. So whatever you are saying, whatever you're doing, whatever you are, you're keeping it in Jesus at every breath. So you're keeping them and their words and what they are evoking in you also in Jesus. Now look at the depth that you have reached because of breath. You're not just a superficial person. There is a depth in you. You're living in Jesus. And that is what God wanted us to do when He created us. He wanted to share with us His very nature, His love. And that is what Jesus did in His life, and He has passed it on to us. Provided we remain in Him, we will be able to also make Jesus present today. And that is our mission. We know how much we need to be at peace. We are all in turmoil internally. Why? Thoughts are coming to us, thoughts from within us, thoughts from outside us, and they are controlling our life. We need to keep them in Jesus, and you'll see Jesus is in control of everything, and you will experience that in your life. You have experienced the salvation that Jesus has brought to us. And if we, my dear sisters and brothers, don't experience it, how are we going to witness it to others? We are just like others. Are we baptized? Yes. Are we living our life? Yes. Little bit. Can we live it a little more? Make a commitment. From today onwards, at night, 5 minutes, spend with Jesus. Surrender everything and experience His goodness filling you. And you'll be at rest at night. You don't need tablets. You will experience His peace, His healing, His He'll make us what we are meant to be in Him. Whether we are young or old, you will see He will give you good health of body, mind, and spirit. So, my dear sisters and brothers, I just invite you to spend just a minute with Jesus the way I've been telling you, because Jesus Himself has told us, remain in me as I remain in you. He's always in us. Let us remain with Him at every breath, and you will see each breath will be a great moment. And that breath will help us to live each day in a great way. And that breath will help us in a week to live, a month, a year. And that's what we are doing. Liturgically, we are now in the Christmas season. We are now going to get deepened into this. And each year, we have this opportunity. So let's make best use of it. I invite you to join your hands like this, because there's a lot of energy in your palms. Let it bring healing to you. Hold it down, close your eyes, and let us experience the birth of Jesus, which is taking place at every moment. But we are not just remaining there. We are growing at each breath more deeper into the awareness of His presence within us. And when we can do this, we will also be able to make Him present to others, because we will be sharing Jesus by our own life. Others will encounter the difference in the way we are with them. And our relationship will be not just at the superficial level, but it will be at the deeper level in the body of Jesus. And that is how He builds up His kingdom here on earth. Lord, help each one of us here to remain always present to You, who are present to us always. And may we, each one of us, make a commitment to remain in this way at every breath. The rest we know will fall in line, because You have a plan and You will execute that plan, provided we allow You to do what Your will is in us, in our thoughts, words, and deeds.